Okay, so it seems like we are live. No?
Yeah.
Great. It's actually the first time when I did it by myself. So
You
almost
got this.
by myself.
You
Yeah.
got this.
Okay. So hello everybody. This is a weekly update on the EVM or the EVM Workgroup Sync. Today we are going to discuss what is the status of the EVM project, what is our position, and what we have done within this week, and discuss a little bit what we are going to do after this. So Eugen, can you give us like an update about the current status and the current goal?
Sure. So we we merged EVM branch to master of New York core. There's a small issue that caused by this branch with some conflict on near SDKRS due to one of the dependencies. We currently trying to fix it. This branch was really like this feature, EVM feature was released to betanet. So we have a EVM working on betanet right now. And we will start looking into how to make it stable and other missing features from the EVM.
Okay, that's great. So it seems like we are pretty close to the close in the phase one, or like we are almost there. So yeah, just to recall to everybody, it was not the public call, but you can take a look at the weekly update that was done pretty recently. It is not that one, sorry. So you can go here. That was done a couple of days ago, and you will see lots of different stuff there. So we are going to update. We are going to do this. Partly, this update is going to intersect with that one. So, with regards to the weekly updates, Arto, can you give us a short overview of what you have been doing?
Sure, although I think you're before me alphabetically.
Okay, I can do it. Yeah. So okay, that's great. Let's do it the other way. So since the last update, I was doing together with Arto actually clean up in GitHub. Now, for probably or hopefully for many people, it will be easier to navigate through the EVM project. So if you will open the near organization, you will be able to see projects here, and if you click on the projects, you will see the EVM projects phase 2, phase 3, and if you will go to phase 2, you will be able to see and like scroll down through this to-do stuff, through this simple stuff. You will be able to see what are the features here. All of them are marked with the EVM tag, and you will be able to see that they are actually from different repos, which is great. So there is a near core repo and the near API.js repo and stuff like that. So we can work with this, and we can track this progress, and this will be visible to our community. And big thanks to Arto for helping me cleaning up this stuff. So that's the major update since the last weekly update.
Arto? All right, I'll take it from there. So I suppose we are doing 2 weeks of updates since we didn't have the call last week. Let me see if I can remember so far back. Yeah, so I worked on the Crypto Zombies test suite last week, fleshed that out. That's now handed over to Frank. I'll mention that soon. I continued work on integrating ChainSafe's Anemone conformance test suite. Or I guess I should mention I began work on it last week, as in we didn't discuss that on this call before. So that's a conformance test suite that has a bunch of Solidity contracts for testing opcodes and edge cases in the EVM. They've apparently found it very useful in testing other EVM compatible chains. They have found edge cases in such implementations. And ideally, we would run this as an integration test using an ordinary Ethereum compatible Web3 endpoint. But we don't have that facility yet. So given that, I'm integrating it as unit tests directly into the near core test suite. And that means we won't be able to test everything that the test runner does, but we will test all these contracts. And there's a bunch of them, and I will look them all over, and they look pretty good. So I'm writing the test runner for testing, exercising each and every one of those. I expect to finish that next week, beginning of next week. Now, that work got interrupted when we needed to figure out the balancer test suite situation last week. And I took over from Mike when he was sick and tried to get that running, wasn't too successful. Now that Mike came back, I collaborated with Mike on that, and I'm happy to say that we've finished the investigation into the problems, and we've fixed everything, and the balancer test fully passed as of today. It was really quite a can of worms, but in the interest of time efficiency, I'll skip the story on this call. It's all recounted in issue 3665 on Nearcore. So we began with 20 failing tests, and as of yesterday, down to 0 failures. Discovered that the very last failing test was actually a genuine bug in the upstream test suite itself, which I will submit as a bug report. And I'm happy to note that Mike and I fixed it together much faster than either one of us could have done separately. So very good collaboration there. This week I helped to onboard Frank, get him set up with the local dev environment, and get started on adding more tests to Nearcore. I submitted some related updates to contributor docs for Nearcore, as did Frank, things he found while getting set up. And indeed, as Alex mentioned today, we did a big ticket triage and cleanup and whatnot. And next up for me, I'll be taking point on the benchmarking goals and secondarily support both Mike and Frank as needed. So yeah, 2 weeks of updates, that's a big update.
Yeah, thanks. Eugen? I can copy everything from the last time, but yeah.
Yeah, so major thing is PR is merged, and next thing for me, I'll start working on benchmarks, internal benchmarks using Criterion. So we want to test how many transfer ERC20 transfer our EVM can handle, ignoring the RPC. And eventually we will test it with RPC on a live node. But we also want to know just approximate target that we can do.
Okay. So we actually created. Okay, so we actually did not create an issue for this. So yeah, okay, we're going to manage this. Okay, great, great. Mike, or should we? Yeah, Mike. Should we go with Frank?
Sure, happy to. Yeah, I just got started this week. Set up the dev environment. Submitted one small pull request for the documentation, and basically I got my new core compiled, got the zombie test running that Arthur already wrote, and I'm now ready to start adding more tests there. Going through the crypto zombies tutorial right now and figuring out what tests I could add.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mike also helped me with some setup stuff and chatted with Max about the organization. So pretty much just onboarding the first 2 days.
Thanks and welcome to our organization or to this specific project.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, happy that you have joined us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so we completely forgotten Bo. Hi, Bo. How is your life?
I'm okay. Just
Okay.
having internet and start working today, so nothing to update for this week.
Yeah.
It's great to get back and see many things get unblocked magically, like it's being on beta.net and balancer test was parsing. These were two, I think, major problems when 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So actually, Bo, I wanted to just a quick information to you. I would like to ask you to take a look at some of the pretty old issues that were created by you. So, for example, here EVM testing suite, and probably one of maybe some of the others ones. So we just do not want to. Yeah, and this one, it's not really old, but can you take a look at this? What is the status of this? 3554. So we just wanted to understand what's the status of this, whether it has a duplicate and something like that.
Okay.
Okay, great. Great. So, Mike, what's up?
Yeah, I guess covering the past 2 weeks, it's been kind of reworking Pet Shop, which is going to probably be the first actually application on BetaNet. We have kind of like earlier we de-scoped the idea of having meta transactions in a relayer where MetaMask could interact with Pet Shops. So kind of like commented out, sort of slightly removed that, but we can bring it back later. Right now we're focusing on the use case of an existing user having a Near account, being able to log in and then interact with this app. So kind of changing how that's all working, but keeping it there so we can add it in later. And before this was all merged to BetaNet, I realized that it would be very difficult for someone to even review this PR for Pet Shop, seeing as with this new workflow, you have to log into Wallet, and there was no network at all. This kind of led me down a path of something that I've heard from the community in terms of setting up a local, Near node that also can access wallets, also can access Explorer. And, there's a little bit of setup in there of setting up Postgres databases, making sure that ports don't collide, et cetera. So that is something that I am going to include in the Pet Shop README, is how to set up the entire stack. It's a little bit kind of dirty, and it's not like a Dockerized pretty thing that you can just say Docker compose up. But I know that there's been a lot of folks who've been asking about that. So that is a little bit of a output that has happened from this EVM work. And as Ardo explained very well, we had the issue with balancer tests failing. I do think that part of that is a little bit related to Truffle and how things work, but that's a longer story. We look forward to adding in some hard hat integrations as well, so that we may not run into the same kind of issues that we had with Balancer. Learn some lessons there that will apply to other projects. And lastly, fix some issues that I've seen in Web3 provider in terms of creating test accounts. There were some small issues having to deal with our key store and how it was trying to create accounts and not counting them properly. So yes, this will all be on BetaNet soon, and we're looking to move on to more interesting existing Solidity dApps to be publishing to the BetaNet EVM.
Yeah, that's great. Anything that we would like to discuss? Max, any questions from you? Because sometimes you're like,
I'm really happy that this stuff is getting organized as projects on GitHub, because GitHub is very friendly to the open source community. People know how to use it. It's not yet another tool. Thing that we need to clarify, as already discussed with Alex Shevchenko, is how to measure velocity of individual team members and of the team overall, so that we can evaluate and also do planning accordingly. The problem with GitHub is it kind of doesn't have this burned out chart and story points, and it's hard to compare issues when you have one issue that takes like 3 weeks versus another issue that takes like 1 day, unless you read the description. This is something to actually brainstorm on. I know that we have many people in this team who are like very experienced with open source, and I would be like very interested to know, for instance, opinions of Arto and Frank on how like other open projects would actually measure this kind of things. You know, because GitHub just doesn't have these features. Like, how would you even go with creating burnout chart, let's say, for the project like that? Do you guys have any ideas?
I have to say that all projects I've worked on, that had this level of complexity, they used Jira. It's just how it's been. It's not the easiest to organize with GitHub for sure. Nobody loves Jira until they need Jira.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, also haven't seen this kind of measuring done in GitHub. I think like normal open source projects, it's more or less people do what they do. It's not like a setup we have here.
So I understand you use ZenHub on top of GitHub.
Yeah.
And I'm not super familiar with that, but I have glanced at it in the past. Does that help with what you need to do, or are you still looking for something on top of that?
Well, I would like you as a team to decide what better suits you as a tool. If it's ZenHub, which would be great because it's kind of consistent with other teams that are working in here, that can be ZenHub. But if Jira is, you know, better, then maybe it's going to be Jira.
No, I don't think Jira is necessarily better. It's just that that was the de facto standard.
Okay.
On any,
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to take a look at ZenHub here because like what we have discussed with Max, because as you can see, I enabled the ZenHub extension to Chrome, and now, for example, what we can see with the issues is the story points that I attached to these issues. If we will go there, we also can see that there is an estimate here and lots of other different stuff which is not common to the plain GitHub interface, which is good. So and it still sits in the same interface. So maybe you can see here the main net guild, which is like we probably need to have something different, which is called the workspace. We need to have a different workspace for us. So let me play with it during the next week. And if everything will be okay, then we are going to use it. And hopefully this is going to be a tool for the managers, not for the engineers, because everything will be kept inside of GitHub, absolutely the same way how it is right now.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's important for other contributors to be able to see still all the issues and stuff like that. So if we would move to Jira, then we would lose the visibility there again.
Yeah, I need to be clear. I never suggested we move to Jira.
Sure.
Let's keep things on GitHub.
Yeah. Like our highest, like very, very high priority is to make sure stuff what we're doing is open to the community. And as we also discussed, you know, maybe open more stuff that we discussed in Slack to the community too for this, whatever, Discord or maybe discussions in the GitHub actually. Maybe something to also brainstorm as a team.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea actually to move from Slack to EVM. Right now let's basically on Slack create something like EVM secret in case we need to discuss something in private, and you will always think like, hey, do I need to go into secret mode, or it actually should be just a regular EVM channel? And let's move to Discord. Discord has a web interface, so you don't need to install anything, and it should be a good way to like communicate. It has somewhat like a lacking amount of threads, and has one kind of line with replies, but it should be sufficient for the amount of people we have and like discussions that we usually have. They don't really need threads.
And also,
yeah, it will help.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And also, of course, the threads may be, in any case, should be formulated as GitHub issues, for example. One good example is 3665, Mike's and my investigation into the balancer tests. That could have been all on Slack, but that would be kind of wasted. It's now it's recorded for posterity, and I'm sure it will help somebody else who has similar problems. I mean, we discovered issues in third-party libraries and whatnot. So that Convoy is a nice example. And
especially,
go ahead.
Especially since we have a beta.net open and we'll have questions from the community about like certain things. Like once they start playing with this, it makes sense to have both like GitHub and Discord.
Okay, so maybe then if everybody, let's do the following. Let's take the next week to make the final decision, and then if we're going to decide to move to Discord, then just let's do it starting the next week. Well, not the beginning, but in the end of the next week, and on this call we can tell to everybody that we are doing this. Okay. Any more topics to discuss?
I suppose depends on the time constraints. And
we have
number of topics.
We have like 4 minutes.
Okay. Well, the one thing already discussed with Mike and Eugen, but will need to be brought up. Maybe I can bring it up in the development channel. Structured error messages from near core. It's what bit us on the balancer tests. There's a bunch of tickets on that. I need to read those and link those to the balancer issues, and we'll comment there. So I just wanted to mention that one more structured error issue.
I think the status of structured error issues is that it has been implemented in the near core. It's like a very old pull request or something that we need to find. The problem is that we haven't written like JavaScript adapters for the near API.js yet. So like when we roll out like RPC changes, we need to first make sure that whatever depends on this RPC is actually not going to be broken.
Yeah.
Actually, you need to follow up with on this with Vlad Frolov and Bowen.
Okay.
Okay, so I created EVM channel on Discord, but just to have it there, and then we'll slowly move there.
Okay. And Eugen, you mentioned you want to work on benchmarking as well, so probably we need to sync on what we each work on that.
Yeah.
Can do after.
Yeah, I will look into like near core benchmark. We have a test suite for native VM, so native contract calls. So we can do the same thing, but for EVM. Basically, just test a bunch of nopes and like stuff like this.
Okay.
And then then do like actual or normal test that includes calling a node.
Okay, Eugen, can you also create a GitHub issue for this? Because we have another issue, but like the bigger one, not the ERC20 benchmark, but like the big one. It sits somewhere.
And the discussion we don't have time for, I think, is about the Ethereum compatible Web3 RPC endpoints. But we should discuss that sometime soon.
I think we can loop in Danny on that. I was talking to her about that a bit. Yeah, just want to mention that.
Okay.
Okay. So seems like we are good. Let us. Can somebody take a look at YouTube whether there are any questions there?
Looking.
actually. I can do it.
Just people saying hello, nothing.
Yeah.
Else.
So yeah, hello to everybody. Hello to Mr. Start Proton. We're glad that you are watching us. So yeah, if no questions, thanks everybody for this call. Have a great weekend and see you next week.
Bye-bye.